Warning: the views and opinions expressed in this program are our own and/or those of our guests. They do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of our employers. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Sometimes a win for a credit person is a declined loan. I hate to say that, but it's just the truth.
They are going to be key to your ability to be successful or to fail.
You know, we've spoken a lot of good this whole time. Why don't we talk about some challenges that you guys have had to face with the credit teams and how you overcame them?
Making sure that your credit team likes you is certainly one thing, but ultimately the most important thing is making sure that they respect you.
Promise I'm not being petty. I'm the one they envy, bro. They moving state to state. Make $1 million out to send me. Plus I grinded from the start. I was stacking pennies. I might dip like Machiavelli. After the confetti, who ready? We ready. Who ready? We ready. Who ready? Who? We ready. Who? Who ready? Who? We ready. Who? Who ready? We ready. Who ready? We ready. Who ready? Who? We ready. Who? Who ready? Who? We ready. Who?
All right. Well, Chris just said, I said, you're late. He goes, I'm putting out fires, bae. Start without me. Say you miss me, please. No.
No,
Not gonna
not
happen.
happening.
I said I'd miss you more if there were flowers behind my head on that shelf.
Welcome to the BDO Show. Finally, a show without Chris Hackney. This is going to be awesome.
Finally. So
Finally.
annoying.
Nah, we love you, Chris.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the BDO Show, the #1 podcast in the nation for passionate BDOs wanting to level up their game with advice and stories from battle-tested BDOs. I'm your co-host, Emily Detour, and I'm here with my fellow co-hosts, Sterling Birdsong and Ryan Kroge. I just want to thank you for being with us. I want to go ahead and remind everybody to hit the subscribe, like button, share with your friends, family, co-workers, and send over your topics and suggestions to the BDO Show at artofsba.com. And don't forget to check out our whole family of shows, including SBA Today, which airs live every week on LinkedIn, as well as our flagship program, the Art of SBA Lending Podcast.
Ooh, one take.
One take M. Good job.
It's because Chris wasn't here.
He wasn't here to distract you.
Okay, BDOs, it's story time. And no, I am not talking about the time Sterling tried to finance a zoo. You'll have to go back to episode 3 for that. I'm talking about the story that your borrower has in their head, and they may need that extra boost to finally get it onto paper. Rapid Business Plans is a known and trusted partner that can help them do just that. Whether your borrowers are working towards acquiring a business, starting one up, or expanding and making moves, within just a few short days, Rapid Business Plans will deliver powerful, fast SBA and USDA-ready business plans with projections and assumptions. If they need an export business plan for an ITL loan or a feasibility study, they have you covered there too. We know this process is not a walk in the park, or should I say zoo. Let the Rapid Business Plans team take some of the wild out of the process so that your borrower's vision and passions can come to life. For more information or to get acquainted, email Bethany McClellan at bethany@rapidbusinessplans.com or click the link in the show notes. The topic is going to be navigating relationships with credit and how BDOs can successfully close deals. So we haven't seen Sterling in a couple weeks. You've been all over the place this summer, and I love that for you.
Little jet setting, went over to London, spent some time in Scotland as well. I went to, Glasgow and Edinburgh. I stay busy. I'm trying to open a tanning salon right now, which has definitely been taking up a lot of my time. Still got the maid business going on in the background. So, it's never a dull moment over here.
Let's start with you then. How do we navigate relationships with credit?
Oh, man, that's a fantastic question. It is super important that your credit team and you have a relationship. Let's start there. You need to make sure that you understand what it is that your credit team is actually looking for. And that just starts with talking to them. Do you actually know when, let's say you bring in a business acquisition deal, for example, what's the first question that you should be asking a customer? I know what the first question should be because I've talked to my chief credit officer about it probably 10 different times. And I know what his pain points are. And I know that if it's somebody who doesn't have direct industry experience, we need to start there. right? And that just comes down to communicating with the people who are on your team to make sure that you actually understand what their pain points are. Making sure that your credit team likes you is certainly one thing, but ultimately the most important thing is making sure that they respect you, making sure that they at least know where you're coming from when you present a deal. Make sure that they respect your opinion on a deal that's being presented. And again, the only way to do that is through constant communication, through repetition, through speaking to people, and through forming a relationship. And it comes over time. You certainly don't want to start with a bad dealing committee and then try and build from there. So I would say, communication and building a relationship is certainly key. And it starts with just an open line of communication, actually being able to pick up the phone and talk to the people who are in your credit department.
Yeah, that pretty much covers it all. That's that you hit it right on the head, Sterling.
We can end the episode. No, I was kidding.
I know that we're done, but we just moved to pods recently, and it's been absolutely amazing. So
I'm jealous of that.
It's one of the best things that we've done. We
for new BDOs, maybe what's a pod? Who may not be in one?
Sure. So at most financial institutions that have an SBA department, you have all your underwriters in one section, you have all your closers in another section, and everybody else who supports them. So you submit a deal, transaction, and you could get one of any of the underwriters there. And if you're at a larger shop, you could have 12 to 15 underwriters. You got 12 to 15 different personalities that all have to understand the type of transactions that you submit, the type of customers that you have, and more importantly, your brokers and what type of brokers that they are. So when we move into pods, the way I really like that is that I have the same 3 underwriters on all my deals. I've got a senior underwriter in my pod, and then I've got 2 other underwriters in my pod. And they're all 3 of them are ones that I've worked with. Matter of fact, one of them is actually up here in Michigan, which is great. He's a recent addition to the bank. So since I do a lot of local deals, a lot of Detroit deals, I'm going to start taking them out and actually seeing the business, seeing the property, kind of meeting the owner. So he's getting more of a flavor of exactly what type of character this individual is, the type of business, looking at inventory, looking at the actual operations itself. So he, as an underwriter, gets a better feel, right?
Yeah, that's a nice thing that you can do because you do a lot of deals in the same metro area. Obviously, we always joke, stay out of Detroit unless you want to see Ryan in a back alley, okay? Because the deal's leaving with him one way or another, okay? So, a great way to deal with your underwriting team is to actually let them deal with the customer directly oftentimes. I think this is something that BDOs, especially early on, sometimes they don't grasp because, let's be honest, not every customer shows fantastic when you're talking to a person who's internal at your bank. There's probably some that are a little bit rough around the edges because they're not finance guys. They're people who, they create their widget and they live in their world and they know how to turn a wrench or whatever it is that they do for their business. That's what they're really good at, but they're not necessarily good at talking to somebody who's on your credit team. But I think that I've oftentimes found more success from basically letting these people actually converse with each other. And sometimes, you can be the buffer and you can be on those calls, for example, but you actually want to have the person, come out and meet them in person if you can, or get them on the same Zoom call. So you actually have to have the underwriter and the person who's applying for the loan can look each other in the eye and actually see each other. And you'll be surprised how often that works out in your favor as the lender, because when you actually meet somebody, they're not just numbers on a piece of paper anymore.
Right.
Then you actually have to look at Mr. or Mrs. Smith, and you actually have to essentially tell them no, not tell the credit memo no. It starts working in your favor in terms of, especially if they like each other and they kind of hit it off, then it's like people want to do business with people that they like, right? They want to say yes to people that they like, and they start trying to find ways to say yes as opposed to potentially finding ways to say no, because you've humanized the person instead of them just being essentially ratios in a table.
Especially when the underwriter is the one that's going to keep asking them for updated documents, more more information. And when you put a face to the name and you don't just kind of hide them in the back and you bring them up to the front, it allows the borrower, like you said, to build a relationship and say, you know what, I'll give this person what they want. We had a conversation. I know that they're just trying to do good for both the BDO, the loan, the lender, everybody. So I agree with getting the underwriters on the phone and not just sending some massive email that is just like a whole bunch of nonsense. Like most of that stuff has to be talked about, explained, relayed the right way. So I do agree with that too. So what are some strategies for building strong relationships with your credit team, Ryan?
So the senior underwriter that's on my pod, he's been at the internet for about as long as I have. So I've had a chance to actually really get to know him. He's here in the Midwest. He's got a great, big personality, kind of like I do. So we've always had a good way of getting along. The only thing bad about him is that he's a Buckeye fan down there in Columbus, but I let that slide every once in a while so we can actually have good conversations. But he's also been doing this about as long as I have on the underwriting side. And so we've remembered and talked about different states of the economy, different ways that the SBA SOP has changed, and we just get along really well. And he's one of those underwriters that likes to pick up the phone, and I love to pick up the phone. And so as soon as he gets a deal of mine, he looks at it, picks up the phone, calls me, says, "All right, why should I do this deal?" And then we have a good conversation about it. And if it's one of those where he's kind of struggling to get it to work, he'll find a way to restructure it and call me up and ask me if I could sell it. And it's just one of those great working relationships that ends up being beneficial, not just to the bank, but also to my customers, because now that he's in my pod and now that he's leading my pod, he's going to see more and more of my referral sources on more and more deals, and he'll get a feel for how they package and they send in transactions. And a lot of them like to take the lead. A lot of my customers don't have English as their first language, so we generally have to do most of the communication with the broker on my end. But it's worked out really well. The same underwriter feels very comfortable picking up the phone and just calling the customer directly, and I feel extremely comfortable with them doing so. I try to put his completed package together, but obviously they're going to have questions. A different set of eyes, different set of optics. They're going to see things that I missed, and they're going to come at it from an angle that I didn't come at it with. So he'll give me a call and say, "Hey, do you mind if I call so-and-so?" I'm like, "Yeah, go for it, man." I don't even need to be on the call. I just know how he is. I know he's going to cut straight to the point. And I know sometimes he just wants to get a couple questions across, not waste too much of his time, get him off the phone. But it's like you said, Sterling, it gets that feel for who the person actually is. And my underwriters in my pod like to have that personal feel. They like to call and talk to the customer and see what kind of character they are, see how intelligent they are about the business and their background. And it's been great. It's been absolutely fantastic.
I think getting the underwriters on a call too is also anybody on the credit team. It brings up more questions, maybe something that the BDO or the broker didn't even think to ask. And it opens up. It's like it makes sure that you don't get in trouble on the back end because you talk things out and it prompts other questions within that conversation. So, we've spoken a lot of good this whole time. Why don't we talk about some challenges that you guys have had to face with the credit teams and how you overcame them, Sterling? Especially as a new BDO, why don't we go that way? When you were like more, because I think you've learned how to navigate your credit team now, but maybe when you were first starting, or maybe some challenges you experienced as in your infancy of your career.
Yeah, you're going to run into tough underwriters. You're going to run into tough credit folks in general. And sometimes it's not the actual underwriter. Sometimes it may be your chief credit officer. Sometimes it may be, a credit administration officer, whoever it is. There's usually somebody on the team that's kind of the hard man. And so it's, how do you navigate dealing with that type of person? What I've found in my career is that typically those people who seem like they're the strongest personalities, or sometimes seem like they just want to win. Sometimes they really just want to be included. And what is really important to them is just feeling like they're important. And so oftentimes what you can do is you can go to them before you go into a credit committee or before a deal gets too far down the road. And you can just include them in the analysis, right? You can just say, "Hey, here's a deal that I'm looking at. Here's the strengths, here's the weaknesses. What do you think about it? How would you approach it? What are your thoughts on how I should proceed here?" And you'd be surprised that, if you actually seek that person out, as opposed to them feeling like they have to seek you out, or like they're going to be catching you doing something with your hand in the cookie jar. If you come to them first, you kind of disarm them. And oftentimes they're actually willing to help you structure a deal. And sometimes they'll be a lot more liberal than you would think that they would be in the first place. You'd be very surprised how that works. It's kind of the same thing as what I was talking about earlier when it comes to letting people talk directly, as opposed to, it just being through emails or however it is. When you're talking to somebody face to face, or when you're talking to somebody on the phone or on Zoom, those are the best ways to communicate, as opposed to doing it through text or through email or anything like that. You're going to hear us say that again and again here on this show. It's a recurring theme to pick up the phone, right? And just to be completely honest, it's because people are a lot more big and bad through email than they are when you're talking to them directly. Let's just be honest, right? People are a lot nicer when you're talking to them face to face, or when you're talking to them even on a Teams message or something like that, a Teams video, as opposed to when you're just talking through email. So I would say, yeah, when it comes to those tough personalities, and when it comes to being a new BDO and earning your respect, you need to actually seek out the conversations with those people, talk to them about the deals ahead of time, and then try and basically get them on your side.
And heck, if you're a new BDO and you're just starting out in the role, you don't have a specialty yet. You don't have the large network yet that is going to be sending you all the transactions that your underwriting department is going to love. So one of my recommendations would be, at your shop, sit with your credit manager, look them in the eye and say, what kind of deals do you like? What do you get excited about that comes across your desk? What type of industries? What type of transactions? Write it down. Figure out what he likes. Find out his strike zone that he or she, is really going to want to get that pen out quick, and then go after him. Go figure him out. Go find him. Bring those deals in, and then call him up and say, hey, I found one. It looks pretty good, but I want to run it by you just to see if you have any pointers that you could give me to make this a tighter deal, a better deal. Kind of like what Sterling said, run it by them. And then once you figure out what your credit manager likes, what your credit manager is going to sign off on, then you're starting to learn the personalities of the underwriters. You're starting to learn the personalities of the underwriters, how they underwrite, how they look at deals, how they get to know them on a personal level, get to talk to them, become their work buddies. Because ultimately, these are the ones that are going to support or deny your deal. Just like you have relationships with referral sources and brokers out here in the field, you've got to have just as good, if not better, relationships with your underwriters, closers, and everybody else in your back room, because they are going to be key to your ability to be successful or to fail.
Yep, absolutely. And one thing that I would touch on that I didn't earlier in terms of strategy for actually how to build a relationship with credit people is talk to them about things that aren't credit. Talk to them about their actual personal life from time to time. Talk about things that are not work related every once in a while. One thing that I used to do, and I really should get back to doing, and I would like to get back to doing, it's just that I'm extremely busy, is I used to take my credit team out to golf. So I would take out, Eric, our head of our SBA credit division, at least once a quarter. I would take him out to the country club I'm a member at. Shout out to CCC. Your buddy Tyler is a member over at the internet as well. I would take out, Eric at least once a quarter. We would go and we would golf. I'd pay for the golf, obviously. And, it's not like I'm paying for that as a way to bribe him, but it's just showing that I appreciate him and the work that he does, because let's face it, guys, the work that the credit team does oftentimes is extremely thankless. The work that we do, we get wins, wins in terms of approvals, wins in terms of them putting your stats up on the board at the officers meeting and everybody seeing that you're a top performer, wins in terms of commission checks. There's a lot of different wins that you get when you are a lender. There's not too many wins as an underwriter. And so you do have to remember that. And if you can at least show people that you appreciate them, talk to them about their actual life, take them out for little things like a lunch here or there, or take them out to golf, things of that nature, it really goes a long way in actually forming a relationship with that person.
So let me ask you something real quick, Sterling. Do you let him beat you at golf?
It depends. So I would like to say yes. I would like to say yes, I do let Eric beat me, but in reality, he's just like really good at golf. He's just way better at golf than I am.
So that's just great advice. And that's
Eric.
Something that I want to try to do now that I've got a local underwriter up here. And Al and I, were just down at our headquarters in Indiana, and we were meeting with our closers, our dedicated closers within our pods. And we came up with a great idea. She sees every one of my brokers. She sees every one of my customers. And being that I'm local, she talks to the same brokers and the same attorneys all the time. So I got to find some time coming up here, but I'm going to fly her up for a couple days and have her meet with some of these attorneys, some of these referral sources that she talks to on a regular basis.
It makes a world of difference when you see people face to face.
Absolutely. And now Craig, my underwriter that's up here in Detroit, I'm going to start bringing him out to more of my face-to-face customer interactions. I want him to get to know them, especially if it's a deal that I know we've already won, we've already taken off the street, and that we know we're rolling into credit. I'll ask him to come on out early and see if he likes it, see if he has any questions, get that thing nice and tight, submit it into underwriting, tell our senior underwriter, hey, Craig went out, saw it. He has a really good feel for the type of transaction we're doing, makes him feel a lot more confident on getting it done. So that's something that I want to start doing with him since he just joined our bank not long ago.
I love that. I love that you guys are dedicated, like, because our whole team is remote and we're all over the country. So it's really hard for us to get together, especially everyone's families are expanding and we're all in different time zones. So it's nice that you have somebody close by that you can, I don't even want to say groom, but just like educate and get to know and just say, hey, we're right here. Let's go do this together. Let's get this win together. So, so what happens?
My closer's all the way out in Phoenix though. So I'll be flying her out from Phoenix to meet all my peoples up here.
Oh, Phoenix. Yeah, that's the far one.
I promised her that if I can't do it this fall, I won't make her come out to Detroit in the
Do
winter.
not bring her there in the wintertime. I already know what you're going to say.
I said
that would suck.
if I can't squeeze it in during conference season, then I'll have her come out in the spring. But I wouldn't do that.
Give her that real Detroit experience, man. You guys
No.
haul around a dumpster fire somewhere, you know?
Her rental's just going to be hitting potholes and
you know what I'm saying?
Filled with salt.
You already know the roads turn to garbage here when winter comes around.
I don't know her name, and I don't know if she listens, but your nose hairs will freeze, just so you know.
Your eyebrows will freeze.
Everything freezes. It's the worst. Okay, so say there is a disagreement over credit over a deal. Okay, so at the end of the day, we've always called everybody who works for us our tribe, right? You guys are the hunters. And then you bring this meat back to your underwriters and you want them to serve it to the whole team, and then they give it back and they're like, that's bad meat. I don't want to get everybody sick. I don't want to cause any repercussions. So when you do go out and you do the work and you've killed the beast and you brought this meat back, they're like, it's bad meat. How do you get over? That's such a good analogy though. I was just like,
nobody wants bad meat.
No one wants it. So kids, again, everyone's gonna get sick. It'll be bad. It's just like a whole thing. There'll be repairs, whatever. So, anyways, if you,
coli.
Everyone. We don't want to talk about what else happens when you eat bad meat, but everybody knows, I'm sure, at one point in their life. So say,
can you get pink eye from that?
Huh?
That's a different type of meat, Sterling.
No. So how do you handle those disagreements? You did all that work, you found the deal, you don't want to tarnish a relationship with a broker, but the credit people are like, sorry, bad deal. What do you do? How do you talk to them?
Well, I mean, a win is a win, but a loss is also a loss. So if it's something you truly can't get by, the first thing I do is I'll talk to my team.
Losses aren't always bad.
Losses aren't always bad. This is very true. I'll talk to my senior underwriter. If we just can't get there between us, which is very rare because he's really good at trying to negotiate and figure out some common ground for me to go back and resell. But if we just can't get there, he and I get along really well. So he has no problem. Hey, go talk to the team lead or go talk to the credit manager. See if they'll get on your side. If they'll get on your side, I'll do it. And that just comes over time of building a good relationship with him, that he understands I'm the sales guy out here trying to get a deal done because I believe it. And he's the credit guy trying to protect our portfolio from, having too many defaults, right? That's the yin and yang of our relationship. So I'll ask, I'll say, hey, so do you mind? I'm really passionate about it, really like this deal. Do you mind if I bring it up to the main guy and have a conversation? He's never said, no, I don't want you to talk to anybody. He's always been like, yeah, go for it, man. Got no problem with it. I can be on the call with you if you want. Talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. And if you can get it done, I'll support you and we'll make it happen. On the flip side, if it's one of those where it's just, I bring it to my credit manager. He's like, no, it's done. Well, on to the next one. If every deal I submit is getting approved, every deal I submit is 100% on point, and if every deal you submit, you are not taking enough risk. You are not putting yourself out there. You're not taking enough risk. You're not trying to make transactions happen. You should be having a decline every once in a while, just to test the boundaries, just to test the waters, and more importantly, to test yourself, to see if you're looking at a deal correctly and to learn something. Take some chances here and there. I mean, don't have 50 or even 20% of your loans decline. I'm talking more like a 90-10 or a 95-5, but you should definitely have some decline somewhere in there.
I agree with that 100%. I always say sometimes you have to test the credit box to make sure that you actually understand what the boundaries truly are. You know, if you don't get a decline every once in a while, do you really even know what the strike zone is truly? You know, you need to every once in a while make them say no. And that's something that I truly believe in. I know other BDOs are not that way. I know some people who are like, they pride themselves on 100% approval rate. I'm never going to be that guy. Like Ryan said, I don't want my declines to be high, right? I don't want them to ever be in a situation where I'm like, you know, they're like, hey, another deal from Sterling is coming. But about like 5% or so of the deals that you put into underwriting getting declined across a year is not a very high rate by any means, but it'll still at least let you know where the boundaries are within your credit box, so that you know how to actually operate when you're out there in the field. Because there's some deals that might be marginal, but you might be able to say like, hey, you know what? I got one of those done about 8 months ago, and here's how we did it. And so then you can go ahead and you can sell it again. But the main thing is when it does come time for a no, because it's going to happen, you need to take it like an adult.
It puts hair on your chest.
Don't die on any hill. You know, when it's a no and you can sense that it's a no, just realize that digging in a bunch and essentially throwing a tantrum about it is just going to make people respect you less in the future. Yeah. You can push back. Don't get me wrong. I will push back, and
we had a whole episode on push back.
Absolutely. If I feel like a deal has merits, I'll restate the merits that I see within the deal several times. But you can tell when the tide has turned, and you can tell when a no is coming. And sometimes it's better to just hop on that boat as opposed to getting ran over by it. You know, just, hold your hands up and say, hey, you know what? This is one of those that we're not going to get comfortable on. I completely understand where you guys are coming from. No worries. I'll go ahead and decline this one and we'll move on to the next one. And honestly, like that right there, again, remember we're talking about credit folk here who don't always get their wins. Sometimes a win for a credit person is a declined loan. I hate to say that, but it's just the truth, right? If they feel like they have protected the bank, that is their job. That is what they are there to do. And so for them, that is in fact a win sometimes. So, you do have to just go ahead and accept that and realize that not every deal is going to get done, nor should it get done. And sometimes the best deals are the deals that you don't do. And that's what credit is there for. They are risk mitigation. They're there to make sure that the bank is making the right decisions. And the salesperson shouldn't always win. That's just part of the game.
Because the ripple effect of a bad loan is not worth you getting that quick win and your name up on a board, because it's bad. Bad is bad.
And if you do end up speaking with your underwriter and agreeing it's okay, go up and talk to the credit manager, you better be extremely confident in that transaction, because you don't want to get known as a BDO that's constantly going above your underwriter's head too, with or without her permission, and with or without their blessing. You don't want to be that guy. Sometimes you look at a deal, look at a transaction. I've had really good conversations with my underwriter, and I kind of shake my head and I go, you know what? You're actually right. This should be declined. Let's go ahead and kick this out and move on to the next one and not waste any more time on it. And you know what? There's so many transactions out there. Having a decline 5% of the time, it's not going to kill your reputation, and it's not going to kill your deal flow, and it's not going to scare away your referral sources. All right.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing that you guys have to remember is to communicate with your referral sources and communicate with your customers so that if a decline does come, that it's not a surprise, right? If you know what your credit risk is because you've been having this communication with your internal partners, with your credit team. You should know when a transaction's iffy. You know, if it's like, hey, this is a 50-50 shot, and I'll tell people that I'm like, I don't really know if we're 100% going to get comfortable with it because of this and this. But I said, if I still feel confident enough that, this is a good deal, that I'm confident that it's obviously going to pay back and be a good loan for the bank to make, I'll still proceed. I'll still have the conversation internally, or I'll pre-flight the loan request. And then, like you said, sometimes you have to make them tell you no if that's the answer, right? But if the answer is no, and you go back to your customer, they shouldn't be surprised the reasons why they got to know.
Yeah, absolutely. You should be setting that expectation right up front, pointing out the hair on the deal, the issues that you see on the deal that are kind of on the fence to both your referral source and your borrower if you don't have a referral source on the transaction. But you got to set those expectations up front, because nobody hates surprises. And you don't want to say, oh man, this is a great deal. Yeah, we'll get it done. No problem. 3 weeks later, it's declined. And now they're going to look at you. What were you talking about? I thought you were so confident in this transaction. What went wrong? What were the issues? Now your reputation's getting tarnished.
I remember, well, I think we've talked about this episode. We talked about it live in Tampa. We've talked about it a couple times on our episodes. That deal where Chris had to do a decline and then told the borrower, like, listen, this is a good deal, but you got a little bit of work to do here for it to actually go anywhere. And then they saw them on the road later and were like, thank you for all the advice and education you gave us as a BDO, because they worked really hard at some things they needed to do before they could start that business or whatever they were buying. And they were very thankful that there was honesty behind that. And too, I was going to ask you guys, you said sometimes you bring deals in that are like 50-50. Like, is that normal to like have a 50% confidence in what you're bringing in and you're just like, meh?
No, not normal at all.
Maybe it's more like a 70-30, but
Okay.
it's, and I would never bring in a deal where I think it's a 50-50 chance of repayment. Let's be very clear about that.
Okay.
Right.
It's a deal that you're still confident in, that would probably get done at a competitor, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
everyone's credit box is different. So, for example, there's if it's a very large airball type of transaction, for example, $5 million unsecured, I know that that's not really necessarily my bank's forte, but it is Ryan's bank's forte, right? And they'll do those types of transactions. So does it hurt for me to go to my bank and ask about this deal that cash flows well, but just doesn't have collateral? No, not really, because I still think it's going to repay. It's just that it's a 50-50 chance whether or not we're going to be comfortable with the unsecured exposure on this, because usually when the unsecured exposure is over 3 million, usually it's not a deal for us, but it doesn't make it a bad deal. It's still a deal that would get done somewhere else. So it doesn't hurt to have that conversation, even if you know that there's not a 100% chance that they're going to be on board with it.
So because every lender has a different credit box and they're just so all over the place, how can BDOs better prepare their deals to align with their shop's credit requirements?
It goes back to what I said maybe about 15 minutes ago. Talk to your
I wasn't
credit manager.
listening.
You weren't paying attention? What's going on, Emily?
You haven't
Go
said
talk-
anything old manish today. It's really bothering me.
I've been hanging around all the young kids down at Fisher's, making me feel 10 years younger. That's why I'm
I don't like
feeling
it.
so spry right now. Talk to your credit manager. Talk to your credit manager. And like Sterling said earlier, have a good relationship with your underwriter, meaning you're having conversations, not just about credit. But when you have those conversations, credit always eventually comes up, because that's a common denominator there in your work life. And you'll talk about different industries, different things that you're thinking. We're fortunate, our credit manager, when he sees something he does not like, he calls us. He sends out an email, or he gets us all on a call, and he says, look, man, here's an example. Subway sandwiches. They're off the table for us right now. They just got acquired maybe about 6 months ago from a very large private equity firm. There's been a lot of their franchises going up for sale. And so he called all the BDOs and said, look, we're taking a break from Subways right now. We don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen, but we don't want to take the risk. So take a step back, and we're going to cool it on Subway franchises for right now. A couple other different industries, same thing. There were shakeups in the industry, got really risky. And he sent an email out, or he got on a call with us and said, we're going to take a break from this industry right now. And it's paying attention to that. If he says take a break, Don't call them up a couple weeks later, say, hey, you know what? I know you said you don't want to do these deals, but I got a great one. No, take a break. There's a reason why he doesn't want to do them. Listen, learn, and be a better BDO as a result.
Amen.
Before we end here, do you guys have any like crazy stories where your strong relationship with your credit team helped get maybe like a wild deal across the finish line?
Yes, a recent one.
Ryan's always got stories. I shouldn't have even asked.
This is a very recent one. There was a BDO out there, very good, very strong BDO that was just switching financial institutions and couldn't get a certain transaction done because of a recent trend in their financials. And this BDO sent me the most complete package you could think of. So it took me a couple hours to get through it, to read through everything. And I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if this is something we're going to feel comfortable with. But you know what? Let me call my senior underwriter, the guy that runs my pod. Let me run it by him. If I throw it up the flagpole and he salutes, I know it's a deal we can get done. So I sent him the whole summary, all the hair that was on the transaction. There was great mitigants for it as to why we should still probably do the deal. But again, Sterling, this was one that I was like 60-40 on.
Ooh.
But because I like this BDO, because I respect this BDO, I wanted to give them a real quick answer on yes, we'll do it, or no, I'm sorry. So I sent him all the information. He had access to the file. He digested it for a couple of days and then called me up and he goes, so why don't you, why should we do this deal? And I gave him kind of I ended up starting talking myself out of wanting to do the deal. And then he started talking me in on why we should do the deal. He was looking at it from completely different optics. He liked the guy. He loved the industry. It just had some issues with billings that they're starting to climb out from. He's like, look, if you can get, trailing 12 months, you can get this, you can get that. If everything looks good, bring it in. I went back, talked to the BDO. She made an introduction to the borrower. We got on a call, asked a couple of the questions that he wanted, sent them back to him. He's like, yeah, we can make this happen. I'm like, done. Shipped it in, got it done. If I didn't have a close relationship with him that I felt confident enough in his ability to see things differently, I'd have just field declined it and this BDO would have been stuck. And this customer probably wouldn't have been able to get this business. But because of my relationship with this underwriter and his ability to look at things differently, we were able to get it done.
And, a lot of times when it comes to relationship and it actually helping you get deals done and whether or not you get quote unquote special treatment as a preferred BDO for your credit team, a lot of that stuff is not ever something you can quantify. It's like it's really unseen, and over the course of a year, maybe you'll win more 50-50 calls than some other people, but it's never going to be a set moment where someone's going to admit to you like, hey, we did this one because it's you, Sterling, or hey, Ryan, you're my boy. So we looked out for you on this one. But just know as a BDO, if you do the work to build a good reputation within your team, again, it's more important that they respect you than anything else. Even if they don't necessarily love you or like you, they have to at least respect your opinion and where you're coming from. And that over the course of time will help you get more production done, but you're never going to know what moment it actually came back to help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any parting advice you want to give all the new BDOs really quick before we end the episode?
Parting advice?
Be nice to your credit team.
Yeah, be nice to your credit team. Don't piss them off.
Yeah.
If they don't like something, even so, look, there are shops that just get busy, right? This is never a consistent business. All right. You never have the exact right amount of deal flow that consistently moves through like a well-oiled machine and a well put together
And
assembly
every
line.
deal is different.
And every deal is different.
Single one
It
of
comes
them.
in waves. Sometimes your underwriter might be under a lot of stress, had 4 change memos that day, 3 new deals, a bunch of different stuff going on. Someone stepped on his cat, had a flat tire. If he comes back to you and he sounds a little gruff, a little rough, and you go off on him, man, that's going to be the bad thing to do. Everybody has a bad day, all right? And if your credit guy, if your underwriter is having a bad day, never take it out on him, never turn it around on him. Just see what you can do to help. And sometimes, I know I've done this, I haven't seen eye to eye with my credit team lead. I could tell he was having a bad day. I really could tell he was having a bad day. And I said, hey, you know what? Let's not worry about this. Let's, table this for now. What if we come back to it tomorrow morning? Fresh set of eyes, talk about it a little bit more. And he's like, man, that's a great idea. Talked
Sleep
about
on
it
it.
the next morning. We figured it out.
Aw.
There you go. I would challenge anyone who hasn't had a conversation with their credit person or chief credit officer, whoever it is that's really the decision maker. If you haven't had a one-on-one conversation in regards to what type of deals that they actually like and what they're actually looking for, I would encourage you to get that scheduled as soon as possible. If you're in person or if you're in the same market as that person, you should really try and do it in person if you can. Take them out to lunch and actually sit with them, ask them these types of questions, and then you actually will end up building relationship, because I guarantee you won't sit there for an hour and a half and only talk about credit risk for the entire time. You'll probably get to know that person a little bit, and that's a good step towards forming that connection. And who knows, it might help you out in a 50-50 deal in the future.
Yeah, that's right.
50-50 deals. All right. Well, great episode today, guys. Thanks for everybody who listened in. Don't forget to check out our other family of shows that we have. We have SBA Today, which is live every week, and then our other flagship program, which is the Art of SBA Lending podcast. But don't forget BDO Show, always number one in your hearts. Thanks for being with us. We'll see you next time, and have a good day.